Concerto High School, deep in the abandoned music wing. There is a room that has been locked for over 20 years. No one knows what happened to the girl who vanished inside. But sometimes, at night, the piano plays by itself. If you hear the melody, whatever you do, don't open the door, because the performer inside is waiting for someone to take her place. Welcome to the locked music room. Why can't we open it? Chapter 1: The Midnight Piano. Kazuki transferred to Seiryu High School on a chilly late autumn day. Red maple leaves covered the old stone stairs, as if the entire school was layered with forgotten memories. The campus, with its antique structure, felt both beautiful and unsettling, like it was hiding something buried for far too long. Kazuki joined the music club because he had played the violin since childhood. On his first day, he was assigned to stay late and clean the practice rooms, an assignment every other student avoided at all costs. He didn't take the warnings seriously. Don't go near the old music room. Don't listen if you hear the piano at night. Don't stand in front of that door too long. To Kazuki, they were just typical scary stories meant to frighten new students. That night, around 10 p.m., the hallway leading to the music wing was nearly pitch black. The only light flickered weakly from a single bulb at the far end. As Kazuki walked with a stack of sheet music in his arms, each step creaked loudly on the wooden floor, echoing strangely in the silence. He cleaned quietly, trying to finish quickly. Then he heard it. Piano, a piano. Coming from the old music room, the one that had been locked for more than 20 years. The melody was soft at first, like someone practicing alone, but the longer he listened, the more distorted the notes became, like fingers dragging across rusty wires rather than keys. Kazuki froze. He was supposed to be the only one there. All the teachers had gone home. No one was allowed inside that room. The music suddenly stopped. Then, a faint girl's voice whispered from behind the door. "Don't leave me." Goosebumps shot up Kazuki's spine. Hands trembling, he stepped closer to the door. The air around him turned freezing cold. He pressed his ear against the wood. Talk, talk, talk? A slow knocking sounded from inside the room. Kazuki stumbled backward, scattering sheet music everywhere. The darkness behind him felt endless. He turned to run. Piano, the piano played again. Right behind him. Kazuki sprinted down the corridor, nearly slipping on the polished floor, and didn't dare look back. He pushed the exit door open, gulping in the cold night air. Silence. Only the rustling of fallen leaves across the ground. But just before he stepped outside, he saw it. At the end of the hallway, a small, pale hand slowly withdrew behind the music room door. Kazuki realized he was not alone in that hallway. Chapter 2: The Legend of Kokoro. The next morning, Kazuki came to class with dark circles under his eyes, having barely slept after what happened. Sunlight filled the classroom, yet the cold from last night still clung to his skin. Refusing to leave, it felt like someone, or something, was still watching him. As Kazuki organized his books for the first lesson, he overheard his classmates whispering about the music wing. When they noticed him listening, a few exchanged nervous glances, as if they already knew he had been near that place last night. A girl named Aoi, short hair, red ribbon, timidly approached. "Hey, did you hear anything from the old music room?" Kazuki froze. His eyes gave away the answer he didn't want to say aloud. Aoi lowered her gaze, voice dropping to a fearful whisper. "They say, Kokoro Watanabe is still there." The name instantly weighed heavy in the air. Students nearby fell silent, as though speaking it aloud might summon her. Kazuki stared at Aoi, urging her to go on. Years ago, Kokoro was the school's pride. A gifted pianist, kind and lovely, destined for greatness. But during the final rehearsal for the biggest performance of her life, she vanished, inside the old music room. No trace. No clue. No body. Just a locked door. And the sound of a piano still playing her unfinished song each night. A boy leaned closer, whispering with a trembling voice. "They say the piece she played that night always stops before the final note." Another added, "Pale. And if someone hears her singing, It means she wants them to take her place. Kazuki swallowed hard. Aoi pulled out a yellowed newspaper clipping and handed it to him. The title struck him like a blade. Greater than, a talented pianist vanishes without a trace, case remains unsolved. The photo beside the headline showed the very door Kazuki had stood near last night. But what made his blood run cold was this. In the shadow behind the half-closed door, a faint figure seemed to be standing there, watching. A sudden cold breeze swept through the classroom, making the curtains flutter violently. Kazuki's thoughts spiraled. The knocking, the whisper, the hand? Aoi's voice trembled as she spoke again. You were there last night, weren't you? The key to the practice room was still hanging on the board this morning. So that means, you didn't use it. Kazuki's heart skipped a beat. If he hadn't opened the door, who did? Who, or what, was playing the piano? He looked down at his trembling hands, feeling the chill return. It wasn't just a ghost story anymore. He had already crossed the line. And Kokoro had noticed. Chapter 3, the second key. That afternoon, heavy rain poured over Seryu High, the sky turning a dull silver gray. Kazuki stayed behind to practice violin, though his mind was somewhere else entirely, at the old music room door. In the instrument storage room beside the practice area, Kazuki searched through shelves for spare rosin. When he opened a rusty metal cabinet in the back, something slid out and hit the floor. A key. Old, dusty, and covered in rust. A single letter was engraved on it. K. Kokoro? Or, Kazuki? He picked it up, and a sudden chill shot up his arm, crawling down his spine. The air around him felt unnaturally cold. The dim bulb overhead flickered, then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the room. Kazuki held his breath. And then he heard it. Heavy footsteps dragging slowly across the hallway outside. Drag. 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 He cautiously peeked through the crack of the cabinet door, but the darkness beyond was like ink. No shape, no silhouette, but the sound kept getting closer. Then, a harsh, discordant piano smash rang out from the old music room. The sound struck straight into Kazuki's chest, freezing him in place, like he was being called. Almost hypnotized, Kazuki stepped out into the hallway. At the far end, he noticed. The old music room door was slightly open. A faint white mist leaked from inside, like a cold breath escaping a tomb. Kazuki moved closer, inch by inch, heart hammering. He raised the key, hesitating. Before even touching the door. Click. The door shut itself. The footsteps stopped. And the hallway light flickered back on. Kazuki stood alone, shaking, clutching the key so tight that the sharp edge dug into his palm. He slowly opened his fist. The key was no longer rusty. It shone brilliantly, polished, as if someone had just restored it moments ago. Kazuki felt the cold metal pulse faintly in his hand. It was changing. And he knew. It wanted to be used. Chapter 4, the unfinished melody. After leaving the storage room, Kazuki tried to continue practicing violin, but the key in his pocket felt like a weight pulling at his thoughts. It was as if the old music room itself was calling him back. Kazuki opened a music book to distract himself, but halfway through turning the pages, he froze. On the bottom corner of the sheet, music. Kokoro W. Written in delicate fountain pen ink. A 20-year-old score, yet mysteriously placed in the current practice room. Kazuki's curiosity overcame his fear. He set the score on the stand and lifted his violin. The first notes were beautiful. Achingly sad, dripping with regret and longing. But as he continued, it felt like something was guiding his hands. Forcing them. The bow moved faster. Harder. Beyond his control. And then, a girl's voice, faint but unmistakably close, whispered behind him. Finish it, for me? Kazuki spun around, no one there. His heartbeat raced, but his body kept playing, dragged by a force he couldn't see. He reached the final part of the song. But the last note had been torn off the sheet. Kazuki, panicked, guessed the last note and moved his bow. Violin snap. Every violin string snapped violently at the same time. One string lashed across his hand, slicing his skin. Blood dripped onto the polished wood. The violin crashed to the floor. Kazuki gasped and stumbled backward. He stared in horror as his reflection on the classroom mirror smiled back at him. Not a tired, frightened Kazuki, but a twisted version of himself, lips curved into a cruel grin. The reflection opened its mouth. That note was wrong. Kazuki scrambled to his feet, trembling. Suddenly, a torn scrap of paper floated down to his feet. The missing final bar of the song. He picked it up. Faded red writing appeared, as though stained by old blood. Greater than, if the song ends incorrectly. The one who plays it must replace me. Kazuki ran from the room. But as he reached the door, a single piano note played behind him. Perfect. Precisely the note he got wrong. Something in the dark was finishing the song for him. Kazuki realized then. The missing final note was never meant to be found. Not by the living. Chapter 5. The door opens. The bruises from the snapped strings still throbbed on Kazuki's hand as he walked down the dim music wing hallway. Each step echoed like a warning. He could no longer pretend nothing was happening. The key in his pocket pulsated with cold energy, as if guiding him to one destination. The old music room. Wind blew through the hallway. Even though the windows were shut, each gust carried the faint sound. Cock, coc. The tapping of piano keys. Kazuki stood before the door. The faded metal sign read, "Greater than music room, do not enter." His trembling hand reached for the key. But before he inserted it, click, the lock turned on its own. Kazuki's breath caught in his throat. The door slowly swung open. Without a single touch, cold air spilled out, biting at his skin. Inside, everything was cloaked in shadows. Except the piano, shining as if freshly polished. Kazuki stepped inside. Immediately, the door slammed shut behind him. The piano was spotless, yet the entire room was coated in dust, thick enough to bury decades. How could the piano look so clean? Kazuki's heart pounded as he bent closer. His reflection glimmered on the piano's surface. But the reflection's shoulders were straighter, and its eyes were wide with excitement. It didn't mimic his movements. A spike of fear shot through him. Kazuki froze. He noticed something under the piano bench. A worn school uniform. He pulled it out. A long unused white blouse and red ribbon tie. The name stitched into the collar. K. Watanabe. His hands shook. He fumbled, dropping the uniform. And a photograph slipped out. A girl with long hair smiling sweetly. But her face had been torn out. Suddenly, a key pressed down by itself. Kazuki stumbled backward. Another note. Then another. The piano began playing by itself. Slow, trembling notes like a corpse remembering a song. Kazuki gulped, eyes drifting downward. Beneath the piano, wet, childlike handprints were crawling out from the darkness. He screamed and bolted for the door. But it slammed shut again, as if the room itself refused to let him go. Kazuki pounded on the door, voice hoarse. "Let me out." The piano's pace accelerated. Hysterical, screaming through its keys. Kazuki forced the door open and stumbled back into the hallway. Just as the final note crashed inside, he gasped for air. Behind him, the room creaked, then fell silent. Only one thing echoed in Kazuki's mind. Someone inside that room doesn't want to be left alone. And they were reaching out for someone to stay with them forever. Chapter 6. The hand beneath the keys. Kazuki tried not to go near the music wing again. But every night, the piano's sound hunted him down. Whether he sat in his room, walked home, or shut his ears beneath blankets, the melody followed. He could no longer tell what was real and what was echoing inside his skull. On the fourth night, Kazuki finally broke. He went back. The regular practice room was still lit. Rows of chairs stood neatly in the glow of the fluorescent lights. The grand piano sat silently at the center like a sleeping beast. Kazuki approached slowly. His palm hovered over the dusty lid. Then, thump! One piano key rose by itself. Kazuki's breath hitched. His legs moved on their own. And he sat at the bench. He placed shaking fingers on the keys and began playing Kokoro's song. At first, it sounded sorrowful, almost human. Then, a freezing grip clamped onto his wrist from beneath the keys. Kazuki's heart stopped. He tried to yank his hand away, but more hands shot out. Small, pale, and deathly cold. They crawled out from the darkness under the keyboard. Dozens of them, each finger bruised, bent, or broken. They grabbed him. Wrist, forearm, elbow, dragging his hand back to the keys. Kazuki screamed as the piano slammed notes violently. Clang, clang, clang. The song twisted into something grotesque. A voice breathed into his ear, the words trembling with pain. Finish it, for me? Kazuki tried to stand, but hands coiled around his ankles too, yanking him down. He kicked and thrashed, finally tearing free. Feet slipping, he fell to the floor. The lights flickered, and suddenly, the piano stopped. Silence. Cold. Kazuki pushed himself up, shaking uncontrollably. His wrists ached. He looked down. 10 dark bruises, like fingerprints, squeezing around his skin, right where those tiny hands had clutched him. Kazuki stared at the piano. It stared back, as if waiting. He backed away, eyes wide. Click. The door shut. Pitch black. A single piano key pressed itself again, as if laughing. Kazuki bolted for the exit, stumbling into the hallway, and the lights came back on. Everything looked normal, silent, empty. But Kazuki knew the truth now. The hands under the piano weren't illusions. And next time, they wouldn't just want his hands. Chapter 7: The Bloody Diary. After that terrifying night, Kazuki knew he needed answers. He couldn't keep pretending this was just a dream. Something had happened in that room. Something terrible. During lunchtime, Aoi pulled him into the library. She looked pale, trembling, as she handed him something wrapped in a dark, old ribbon. A notebook. Its cover was nearly black from age, and smeared with brownish stains that looked disturbingly like dried blood. On the front, engraved faintly, K.W. Kazuki felt a chill run through him. This was Kokoro's diary. Aoi whispered. I found it in the back of the storage room, where you said you picked up that key. Kazuki's pulse raced. So that place had been calling him long before the piano did. He slowly untied the ribbon and opened the first page. The scent hit him immediately. A mixture of old paper and blood. Her early entries were cheerful. Greater than, I get to perform solo. Sensei says I have a gift. I hope my parents will be proud. Page after page. Joy, hope, dreams of a bright future. But then the writing changed. Shaky. Uneven. Like written through tears. Greater than, Sensei wants me to practice alone. Every night. Until I get the last note right. Another page. Greater than, someone is watching me. Outside the door? But when I ask who, nobody answers. The next pages were stuck together, hardened by a reddish-brown crust. Aoi tried to stop him. Kazuki, don't. But he pried them apart. A small, torn paper slipped out. Words scratched in dark red. Greater than, if someone reads this, don't open the door. I don't want anyone to replace me. Kazuki's chest tightened. His hand shook. The legend was true. The diary suddenly flipped open by itself. To the final entry. Greater than, if I disappear. Please. Someone play the last note for me, so I can leave this place. Below the writing, a bloody handprint, tiny and trembling, as if Kokoro had pressed her hand down with her final ounce of strength. Kazuki shut the diary quickly And that's when he saw it. Between the shelves in the far corner. A figure. A girl. Long hair covering her face. Uniform soaked like dripping ink. Watching him. Kazuki blinked and she was gone. But the chill remained. He clutched the diary to his chest. Terrified. He finally understood. Kokoro wasn't just haunting the music room. She was following him. And she would not stop. Until the song was finished. Or she had her replacement. Chapter 8: The Truth About the Final Rehearsal. Kazuki couldn't run from the truth anymore. He had to face the only person still alive. Who knew what happened that night? Music teacher Igarashi. Older now, gray hair. Tired eyes. But when Kazuki entered the teacher's office, holding Kokoro's diary, the pen slipped from Igarashi's hand. His face drained of color. "You went into that room, didn't you?" His voice trembled, not with anger, but dread. Kazuki didn't answer. He didn't need to. Igarashi closed his eyes as if reliving a nightmare. He confessed. 20 years ago, Kokoro was a rising prodigy. Admired by all. But Igarashi, then a young teacher, was obsessed with her talent. With her perfection. He forced her to practice late at night, isolating her from everyone. On the night of the final rehearsal, Kokoro made a mistake. One single final note. Igarashi lost control. He struck the piano in rage. And the door slammed shut behind them. When help arrived and the door was forced open, Kokoro was gone. No blood. No struggle. Just deep scratches on the keys. As if fingernails had clawed them until they snapped off. Igarashi's voice shook. Since then, the piano never stopped playing her piece. Always pausing before the last note. He clutched his chest. Guilt crushing him anew each day. That room was never locked to keep people out. His gaze slowly lifted to meet Kazuki's. Greater than, it was locked. To keep her from leaving. Silence swallowed the room. Kazuki took a small step back. The floor felt like it was sinking beneath him. He finally understood. Kokoro never escaped. She never moved on. She was still there. Waiting. Igarashi leaned closer, his voice barely a whisper. Greater than, she doesn't want to be alone. She wants someone to take her place. A cold wind blew through the shut windows, slamming papers off desks, rattling the lights. Kazuki clutched Kokoro's diary tight. He could feel a presence, breathing against his neck. He hadn't stepped toward the music room today. Yet the music room had stepped toward him. Chapter 9: The Replacement. Kazuki returned to the music room the next day, desperate to cling to any sense of normalcy. But everything only grew more wrong. A small crowd gathered around the club bulletin board. Aoi waved Kazuki over, worry etched on her face. "Your name, look." Kazuki stared at the performance list for the upcoming showcase. Greater than solo piano, Nakamura Kazuki. His heart skipped. Below it, listed as understudy. Greater than Watanabe Kokoro. Kazuki staggered back. Kokoro's name returned to the list after 20 years. Everyone assumed it was a mistake. But the signature beside Kazuki's name, the one confirming his role, was his handwriting. Except Kazuki never signed it. His fingers went numb. The hallway lights flickered overhead. Suddenly, the ink beneath Kokoro's name shifted. New words appeared, like invisible fingers writing in real time. Greater than, not the understudy. I am the main performer. Kazuki stumbled away, breathless. At the library, searching for answers, Kazuki found an old article. Greater than, a new prodigy at age 3. Nakamura Kazuki, the future of Seryu's music. There was a photograph. A tiny child at a piano. Him. That talent, those memories, had been erased from his life. Cause. A mysterious accident during piano training. He kept reading. Greater than, music teacher Igarashi predicts. Kazuki could succeed Watanabe Kokoro's legacy. Should anything happen to her, replace her, The words burned into his skull. This had been planned, long before Kazuki could understand. Is that why the key sought him? Is that why Kokoro whispered, "Don't leave me"? Kazuki realized. He wasn't randomly chosen. He was the one meant to take her role. From the beginning. Igarashi found him again. Kazuki asked, voice trembling. Why me? The teacher's answer came like a death sentence. Greater than, because she chose you. The air around them turned sharp. Kazuki could hear a piano playing. From somewhere behind the walls. The final notes. Halted. Silent. Waiting for him. Igarashi looked broken, terrified. Greater than, she hasn't forgotten. And now, she wants you to finish it. Kazuki clutched his head, shaking. I don't want this. I don't want to replace her. The piano slammed a violent chord. Through the hallway. Bang. Kazuki nearly fell to his knees. He heard Kokoro's whisper. Curl beneath his ear. You already did. The key in Kazuki's pocket heated up. Hot enough to scorch skin. No escape. No choice. Not anymore. Kazuki wasn't just stepping into Kokoro's world. He had been pushed. Into her place. Chapter 10 The Night of Fingers. Kazuki couldn't sleep. Not because of the piano anymore. But because he felt watched. The moonlight cast a shadow of his body against the wall. But the shadow did not move when he did. Heart pounding, Kazuki ducked under his blanket. Then, something cold brushed against his foot. Not fabric. Not air. Fingers. Kazuki kicked wildly, throwing the blanket aside. But no one was there. His room was quiet. Too quiet. But on his bedsheet, 10 small dark marks appeared. Fingerprints. The size of a child's hands. He stumbled back, staring in horror. Then another realization hit him. Someone was in the mirror. Kazuki turned, slowly. In the mirror reflection stood a tall, slender girl. Head bowed, hair dripping like she had just crawled out of water. School uniform torn and stained dark. Kazuki's breath choked in his throat. He was too afraid to look behind him. But the reflection of the girl lifted her head. A blank, pale face. Eyes like black holes. Her hand reached for his shoulder in the mirror. And Kazuki felt the freezing weight of a hand grip him in reality. A whisper slithered into his ear. Finish, the last note? Kazuki spun around. Nothing. He barely exhaled. Before something clamped around his neck. 10 tiny fingers squeezed tight. Cutting off his air. Kazuki clawed at the invisible grip. Desperate. But his hands touched nothing. His eyes caught the mirror. In the reflection, Kokoro stood behind him. With her hands around his throat. Smiling a dead smile. Her eyes stared straight into his. Greater than, if you won't play. I'll stop your breathing. Her grip tightened. Kazuki's vision blurred. He kicked the nightstand. The lamp shattered. And the room burst into light. The hands vanished. Kazuki collapsed to the floor, gasping. He coughed and reached for his neck. 10 dark bruises, perfectly shaped like fingerprints, were already forming. Before he could even breathe, the mirror scrawled a message on its own. Letters appearing in thick black smears. Greater than you are the replacement. A bloody handprint dragged down the glass. Kazuki trembled violently. Kokoro wasn't waiting anymore. She wasn't confined to the music room anymore. She was in his room. His home. His life. And she would take every breath from him. If he refused to finish the song. Chapter 11 Becoming the Locked One. Kazuki went to school the next day with a scarf wrapped tightly around his bruised neck. Aoi noticed right away. What happened? Are you okay? Kazuki forced a weak smile. Just caught a cold. But Aoi's eyes filled with fear. She knew it wasn't sickness. Kazuki had no answer. How could he explain hands that appeared from nowhere? A ghost strangling him in his sleep? He wished he could run far away. But his feet refused to leave the campus. Something was pulling him back. The rain poured, darkening the hallways. One by one, Students went home early. Kazuki stood alone. He found himself walking toward the old music room. Without deciding to, the door stood there silently, as if waiting for him. Not locked, not resisting, just wanting. Kazuki swallowed his fear and touched the knob. Creak. The door opened on its own. The darkness inside felt thick, alive. Kazuki stepped through, and the door vanished behind him. Solid wall. No exit. His heart dropped into a void. The piano gleamed under a dim, sourceless light. He could see his reflection on its surface. But the reflection smiled back. Kazuki took a shaky step back, and the lights dimmed further. Cock. Coc. Knocking from inside the piano. The lid slowly lifted, revealing eyes in the darkness beneath. Black. Empty. Hungry. A girl pulled herself out from inside the piano, like a drowned body dragged from a deep lake. Water dripped from her hair and uniform. Her skin was paper pale, but her lips curled into a gentle smile. Greater than, I've waited so long. Kazuki shook his head violently. Kokoro, I can't help you. Her voice shifted, breaking into something twisted. Greater than, then stay with me. Forever. The piano roared, strings hitting the wooden spine like claws. Hands, dozens of them, burst from the floor, the walls, the keys, grabbing Kazuki, yanking him toward the bench. He tried to scream, but invisible fingers sealed his mouth tight. The piano bench locked around his waist, pressing him in place. His wrists slammed down against the keys, cuffs of pure darkness binding him. No escape. Not anymore. A sentence appeared on the wall behind the piano, in fresh, bleeding letters. Greater than the next performance. For two only. Kazuki felt his breath shortening. He had become what Kokoro needed most. The new one locked inside. Chapter 12: The Concerto for the Dead. Kazuki was dragged onto the piano bench, his wrists locked in place by cold shadows gripping him like iron shackles. Panic surged through every nerve in his body, but he couldn't move, couldn't even raise his voice. Kokoro sat beside him, her shoulder pressed against his, ice against human warmth. Her wet hair dripped onto the keys, each droplet a dark stain. A soft, broken smile lingered on her pale lips. Greater than, let's begin. The keys lifted beneath Kazuki's fingers, forcing his hands to the correct position. His fingers descended, and the music started. At first, it was hauntingly beautiful. Every note dripped with sorrow and longing. A cry from someone who couldn't leave. But soon, the melody twisted into something inhuman. Each time Kazuki struck a key, a dead, gray hand burst up from beneath the floorboards. Crawling, clawing, helpless soul seeking freedom. Kazuki's heart thundered in his chest. Stop, please, stop. But Kokoro didn't let go. Her icy hand pressed over his. Greater than, don't stop. If you do, one of us will disappear. Her voice shook, as if she feared that fate more than death. Kazuki's fingers ran faster, blood seeping from the cuts where the keys bit into his skin. Kokoro leaned in close, her lips almost brushing his ear. I died for that last note. Her tears splashed onto his hand, but the tears were black. Greater than, Sensei wanted perfection. And I wasn't perfect enough. She laughed weakly, like choking on glass. Greater than, so now you will be. Kazuki tried to pull away, but the hands beneath the keys clutched harder, digging into his flesh, forcing the music onward. Dash dash dash. The final measure of the song approached. The exact moment Kokoro vanished 20 years ago. The room shook. The piano screamed. Kokoro stared at him with trembling hope. Greater than, please. One last note. Set me free? Kazuki shut his eyes and pressed the final key. Piano. The last note rang out. A sound of breaking chains. Like something ancient had been released. Kokoro smiled. But that smile was not relief. It was claiming. The room collapsed into darkness. Kazuki opened his eyes. The piano. The walls. Kokoro. All gone. He stood in silence. Then, click. A lock turned behind him. Kazuki spun around. A door. The door. Its metal sign gleamed. Greater than music room, do not enter. Kazuki reached for the handle. But his hand passed straight through. Like he wasn't fully solid anymore. A mirror appeared on the wall across from him. His reflection looked back. But with black eyes. Bound hands. Pale skin. A trapped soul. He was inside. And Kokoro was gone. Kazuki whispered, horrified. She's free. But the reflection's lips curled upward. Greater than, no. She's just not locked anymore. A voice echoed from the other side of the door. Kokoro's voice. Thank you for taking my place. Locks clicked loudly. As Kazuki realized, he was now the one sealed inside. Forever. Chapter 13 The Cracked Mirror. Kazuki found himself suspended in darkness. No walls, no light, no floor. Only a single mirror. Standing in front of him. It reflected not the void, but a version of Kazuki. That did not move like him. The reflection stood unnaturally still. Its smile twisted painfully wide. Eyes entirely black. Kazuki whispered. Who are you? The reflection's grin stretched further, ripping the skin near its mouth. Yet no blood spilled. Greater than, I am you. The you they want. Kazuki stumbled back. But there was nowhere to go. Suddenly. Crack. A thin fracture split the center of the mirror. Kazuki's reflection did not crack. Only the glass between them. The reflection raised a hand, pressing its fingers to the glass. Kazuki felt cold fingertips slide down the back of his neck. He whirled around. Dozens of hands crawled from the blackness, grabbing his arms, legs, chest, forcing him toward the mirror. He screamed, kicking wildly. No, let me go. But the reflection's voice echoed all around him. Greater than, you belong here now. Kazuki fought harder. The mirror shattered. Shards spiraled through the darkness. Like silver blades. Kazuki was thrown backward. And landed. Back in the old music room. Except, he was on the wrong side of the mirror. His wrists were bound to the piano again. Knees locked under the bench. The cuffs of shadow tightened. Kazuki looked up. The mirror was whole again. On the other side, Kazuki saw himself standing freely in the room. But that Kazuki had Kokoro's dead black eyes. The fake Kazuki leaned close to the mirror. Greater than, don't worry. I'll perform beautifully for you. His smirk twisted unnaturally. Kazuki tried to scream, but the room swallowed his voice. Around him, countless mirror shards on the floor reflected Kokoro's face, her smile in every fragment. A final message scratched itself onto the mirror's surface. Greater than performance schedule. Main pianist, Kazuki Nakamura. Duration, forever. Kazuki's heart shattered. He had become what Kokoro once was. A prisoner of the song. A soul. Cracked. And trapped. Behind glass. Chapter 14 The New Missing Person. The next morning, the rain had stopped. Sunlight soaked the school grounds. And the students of Seryu High carried on with life as usual. Except, Kazuki wasn't there. Aoi waited all morning, glancing again and again at the empty seat beside her. She called him. Messaged him. No response. She rushed to the teacher's office. Sensei, Kazuki isn't here today. Can we? Nakamura Kazuki? The teacher frowned. We don't have any student by that name. Aoi's blood ran cold. That's impossible. He sits next to me. He. The teacher shrugged, already turning away. Aoi stumbled back into the hallway. No one remembered Kazuki. Not his classmates. Not the teachers. The attendance sheet. Blank where his name should be. Like he had never existed. Aoi ran to the music club bulletin board. Yesterday, Kazuki's name had been listed first. Now, greater than solo piano, Watanabe Kokoro. Fresh ink. No trace of the change. Her breath came in sharp gasps. Where did he go? Where are you, Kazuki? Tears blurred her vision. But then, a piano note echoed from the music wing. Aoi froze. Something inside her knew. He was still here. She followed the sound to the old music room. The corridor stretched unnaturally long. Lights flickering overhead. With trembling fingers, Aoi opened the door. Creak. The room was pitch dark. Silent except for the dripping of water somewhere in the back. A single object caught her eye. Kazuki's scarf. Folded neatly on the piano bench. She rushed over, clutching it tight. Suddenly, the piano struck a chord by itself. Bang! 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 Keys smashed down in a frantic pattern. Aoi stumbled back, terrified. A voice. Broken, suffocated. Leaked out from beneath the keys. Help me? Not Kokoro's voice. Kazuki's. Aoi's heart stopped. Kazuki? Kazuki, where are you? The piano fell silent. A fresh message appeared on the lid. Scratched by unseen fingers. Greater than save me. The letters dripped as if carved into flesh. Aoi cried out, dropping to her knees. At the corner of the room, the mirror gleamed faintly. In that reflection, Kazuki stood there. Pale. Eyes hollow. Hands bound to invisible chains. He opened his mouth, but no sound came. Aoi reached out toward him. Hold on, Kazuki, I'll get you out. But he only mouthed silently. Greater than, don't come in. And then, he vanished. A breath of cold swept past her ear. One more. Aoi spun around. No one there. The room seemed to pulse. Like a heart buried beneath the floor. She clutched Kazuki's scarf to her chest, sobbing. I won't abandon you, I promise. Outside the window, Kazuki's reflection watched her, smiling, as if waiting for her to take a step closer. To join him. Inside. Chapter 15. Why can't we open it? The school prepared for the upcoming performance. The auditorium lights glowed warm and bright. But one seat remained empty. Kazuki's. Teacher Igarashi stood silently backstage, hands trembling behind his back. He stared toward the music wing, unable to face what was coming. Another teacher approached him. Where's the pianist? We're starting soon. Igarashi's voice cracked. There is no pianist. But no one listened. No one remembered that there ever was. Inside the old music room, Kazuki sat frozen at the piano. His wrists were bound to the keys. Shadow cuffs tightening with every breath. His eyes were no longer his. Black. Empty. Waiting. Kokoro sat beside him. Still and peaceful. For the first time in 20 years. She looked content. A faint light danced in her dead eyes. Greater than, the final performance, begins now. The piano lid snapped open. The strings inside rattled. Like teeth chattering with hunger. Kazuki felt every heartbeat slipping. Further from the world outside. Meanwhile, Aoi sprinted through the empty hallway. Clinging to Kazuki's scarf. She kicked open the door to the music wing. She wasn't scared anymore. Love or loyalty. Whatever it was stronger than fear. She reached the old room and slammed the key into the lock. But the key wouldn't turn. She twisted harder, tears streaming. Let him out. The lock clicked. But not in her hand. Inside the room, Kazuki heard chains clatter open behind him. He looked up. And whispered. Greater than, don't open it. Aoi's hand froze. Teacher Igarashi grabbed her shoulders from behind. Stop, if you open it. Both of you will be trapped. Just like her. Aoi shook her head, crying. He doesn't deserve this. He didn't do anything wrong. Igarashi's voice broke. Greater than, neither did Kokoro. Silence crashed between them like a storm. Inside the room, the piano slammed a violent chord. Krang. Kazuki screamed without sound. As the cuffs dragged him deeper into the bench, the piano swallowed the light around him. Kokoro's voice echoed from everywhere. The next one will stay with us. A tiny, pale hand stretched through the crack under the door, reaching outward, inviting. Aoi stumbled backward. Kazuki, please. His face appeared in the small window again. But this time, his smile wasn't forced. It was pleading, broken, desperate. Greater than, Aoi, run. The door shook violently, as if a monster inside wanted out. Then, slam. The door slammed itself shut. All light disappeared inside. The hallway fell silent. Later that night, the school sealed the area. A final warning sign bolted onto the door. Greater than music room, locked permanently. Do not approach. But the security camera recorded something. At exactly 3 a.m., 2 pianos playing. A haunting duet. A boy's voice and a girl's voice, whispering together through the walls. Greater than, not enough. One more. A rehearsal for 2, forever. Below the door, scratched in fresh marks. Greater than, who will open it next? Some doors are locked for a reason. Because once opened, they demand a sacrifice. Kazuki tried to escape the melody, but he became the next performer. Now the piano plays a duet, and the room waits for its next audience. If you ever pass by a dark hallway and hear a single piano note behind a locked door, remember this story and keep walking before someone whispers, "Don't leave me," from the other side.
Like and subscribe to Whispering Dark Tales for more chilling ghost stories.